On October 25-26, following several deliberate attacks by UAF using U.S. HIMARS and rocket missiles, the structures and the Belogorod dam water gate received damage. The strikes were also delivered using drones to amplify the scale of damage and to attack repair crews fortifying the dam. The enemy does not hide plans to literally cause a man-made disaster to slow advancing Russian troops in the Volchansk area of the Kharkiv region by flooding settlements along the banks of the Seversky Donets River. According to a similar scenario, UAF militants acted when they destroyed the Kakhovka Dam in June 2023. On October 24th in London, another so-called conference of the Coalition of the Willing was held. Now it's clear what the Coalition of the Willing really means. These are the very regimes who started salivating at the understanding of how much they could earn by this dying gasp of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, plundering sovereign assets, inventing deals that could later be ignored because they certainly won't be accountable to Zelensky, but will certainly pocket the money. As London's discussions showed, this very coalition of the willing is shifting its focus from purely military aid to financial and economic leverages to pressure Russia. Experts rightly noted those attempts by this coalition of the willing to find ways to help Zelensky while also profiting from Russian assets and income from them, convincingly testify that the resources of the European sponsors of the Kiev regime are running out. This is also confirmed by the ongoing discussion with generous allies' idea to also dip into private assets of Russian origin of about 25 billion euros, which are also frozen in European banks. Amid this, Russia's objective approaches to settling the Ukrainian crisis, based on eliminating its root causes, are meeting with growing understanding from foreign leaders and politicians. On October 23rd, the Moldavian Military Science and Memory Agency held an exhibition titled Outstanding Personalities of the Romanian Army in Bessarabia, 1918-1944. It is time to the Romanian Army Day. Among these personalities are chevaliers of Nazi Germany orders. We hope that it will not come to the final approval of such bills, like Israel's sovereignty bill for the West Bank of the Jordan River. Otherwise, it will be impossible to avoid a new dangerous escalation, both in the occupied Palestinian territory and in the Middle East region as a whole. We urge the representatives of the World UN Organization to refrain from effectively indulging this Ukrainian staging in Bucha. Not only Ukrainian, but the Ukrainian Western staging aimed at discrediting our country. We urge the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres to facilitate a thorough and transparent investigation to identify those responsible for this monstrous crime of the Kiev regime. With active support from the Biden administration, in April 2024, the U.S. passed a law on peace through strength in the 21st century. It contains a mechanism for confiscating Russian sovereign assets, and the purpose of this whole action was to nudge or precisely provoke other Western countries, primarily the European Union, into confiscating our state reserves. What is happening now is a direct consequence of the European Union following the lead of the White House administration at the time and taking a senseless and criminal confrontational approach towards Russia, while also pumping money and weapons into the Kiev regime without restraint. We warn the European Union once again that stealing Russia's sovereign assets will not bring it additional funds, but will instead cause serious long-term problems. Consequently, Russia has decided to terminate its cooperation with the United States under the agreement. Denouncing this document and its protocols signals that any attempts to undermine Russia's military and political interests, or to unilaterally revise the terms of international treaties signed between our countries, will be met with firm and consistent resistance. The relevant authorities in Russia and Azerbaijan are engaged in substantive dialogue to ensure the prompt return of Russian citizens to their homeland. The message in such cases is usually the same. Russia is systematically taking steps to maintain the effectiveness and reliability of its national strategic deterrence forces and capabilities, their technological maturity and adequacy in the face of existing threats. The purpose of the tests is to ensure our country's unconditional readiness to defend its fundamental and vital interests, as well as to demonstrate to any potential adversary that Russia is capable of delivering a guaranteed and decisive response to any potential aggression on their part. As the Russian leadership has repeatedly stated, the development of systems like the BUREVESTNIK is forced and takes place in order to maintain the strategic balance. In particular, our country has to respond to NATO's increasingly destabilizing actions in the area of missile defense. Such statements probably serve to partially resolve internal problems in Riga, Tallinn, and Vilnius, among other things. They distract their own populations with regular Russophobic attacks. We are in close contact with our Iranian friends regarding current international and regional issues. As is well known, we share similar or identical views on the vast majority of these issues. The Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement, which came into force on October 2nd this year, is guiding us towards even closer coordination. According to this document, the parties shall contribute to strengthening peace and security in neighboring regions. This applies fully to the Middle East. Westerners are conducting subversive activities not only against Russia's interests, but also against other competitors who are also present in the region. At the same time, in their efforts to harm us or anyone else, they are making the same mistakes. It is primarily the civilian population on the African continent that suffers from the short-sighted policy of flirting with terrorists, as well as security in their own countries. The Kiev regime is cooperating with terrorist groups in Africa. On the African continent, it is helping to carry out attacks by organizing militant training and supplying them with the same Western weapons that NATO is providing to Ukraine. The European Union is paying for all of this. This confirms Zelensky and his gang's terrorist nature. It seems that this is their way of taking revenge on Africans for their neutral stance on the situation in Ukraine. They are seemingly trying by any means to draw the African continent into a confrontation with Russia, regardless of African interests.